Notice was given by mail to all owners of property within a 120-meter radius of the subject land and was posted on site on September 3rd, 2020.
Thank you. I would now ask for a planning report on Mrs. Flowell, please.
An application for rezoning and official plan amendment was received for 482 Boundary Road. The applicant would like to redesignate the property from residential to highway commercial and rezone the property from a C2 highway commercial zone to a highway commercial -21 zone to allow for a proposed kennel along with other C2 uses. A kennel for the purposes of 482 Boundary Road would be defined as a building where dogs are boarded or trained, given medical treatment, or housed for similar purposes for personal use or as a commercial service to the general public and shall include a shelter. A dog shelter shall be defined as providing care for dogs needing protection, attempt to find homes for homeless dogs, and reunite lost dogs with their owners. The official plan presently designates the property as residential. This would have to be changed to highway commercial. This would be a housekeeping item, as there hasn't been any residential use on this property for many years. The present highway commercial zone does not permit a dog kennel. However, the present zone does permit an animal daycare facility, a pet grooming facility, and an animal hospital. So the animal daycare facility, which is going on presently, is defined as an establishment where the caring, grooming, or training of household pets occurs on a short-term basis, less than 12 hours, within a 24-hour period during daytime hours. A pet grooming establishment is defined as the practice of cleaning and maintaining pets of customers and can include the sale of animals or birds for the use as pets, but does not include a shop or a place for the breeding or overnight boarding of animals. The applicant is proposing an animal daycare facility and pet grooming facility. However, he would like to expand to include overnight boarding. At the beginning, if approved, the overnight boarding would be for rescue dogs only, but in the future would expand to the use to permit accommodation overnight for dogs. The applicant would like to limit the number of dogs to 20 during the daytime hours and 10 overnight. The property is bounded to the west and south by existing commercial uses, and it's bounded to the east by an existing industrially zoned property, the old CN railway tracks. It's bounded to the north by Boundary Road, which is designated as an arterial road in the official plan. And the closest residential property is approximately 133 feet. It is being recommended that a noise impact study be provided prior to the property being rezoned. This is to ensure that potential noise impacts from the proposed kennel can be met through noise attenuation measures. The only way to determine if noise will be an issue or if noise can be addressed is through a noise impact study. Recommendations of the study could include a noise attenuation fence to be erected. The property meets the lot depth, lot frontage, front yard depth, rear yard depth, and side yard setbacks, as well as the parking requirements. A dog run would be located along the interior side yard, which is adjacent to the old CN railway berm. The dog run would be fenced, and a portion of that fence would be facing Boundary Road, would be screened from view. Dogs outside would be supervised at all times, plus there will be a limited amount of dogs outside at one time. Therefore, noise from the kennel should be limited. But again, a noise impact study would determine if any mitigation measures are necessary. The zoning bylaw requires a total of 16 parking spaces, and according to the site plan, there are 25 parking spaces. There's municipal water and sewer to the property, and it meets the provincial policy statement. So the planning department is recommending the conditions, should approval be granted for 482 Boundary Road, and the conditions would be that a noise impact study would be required, and the recommendations would have to be fulfilled as part of a site plan agreement regarding noise attenuation fencing or any mitigation measures that would be recommended by this study.
Has there been any opposition to the application?
The city has received two opposition, one letter and one verbal. Steve Pollock of 611 Elgin Street and Tom Gudde of 613 Elgin Street have both expressed concerns about the possible noise levels from barking dogs.
Has there been any support for the application?
There has been. Mr. Hinch is available now to speak on behalf of the application. Mr. Hinch?
Hi there, honorable ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jeff Hinch, president of
Fire Team Canines, and with me is Lisa Kundal, my vice president. Yeah, so far we've been operating at fairly good capacity. The impact in the area seems to be very positive. Fire Team Canines, our main goal is to provide service dogs to vets and first responders, and also to help with our animal rescue, Monty's Mutts. We'd like a place where we can house a dog overnight who's not ready for fostering, who needs work. We're trying to prevent dogs from ending up in kill shelters.
One of the challenges with removing dogs from high kill shelters is that I usually have about 12 hours notice to go get the dog wherever it is and get it out of the shelter before it's euthanized, which doesn't exactly leave me time to find a suitable foster home, which I can usually accomplish in 24 to 48 hours. So it's a very short, we're looking for a short-term solution to try to save these dogs' lives.
Long term, we're hoping to have the other building, rent the other building on the property, and with that one's actually set up better, that we could actually make a real overnight kennel, and that would be more income and would support the industry. Did you guys hear me okay?
If you have any specific questions, we're happy to answer them, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Report from the chair of the Planning and Development Committee, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Committee did table this item until we were able to get the results of a noise impact assessment. Hopefully that'll be sooner than later. However, the committee was very pleased, first of all, with the operation of the business in its current state, but also the fact that that Jeff is moving towards having a kennel, which is something we don't have within the city's limits. So we're hoping all goes well.
Okay. Are there any questions from council? Councillor Lafreniere, put on your mic.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to ask a question. So are you saying that this is not going to be a commercial kennel right now? It's simply a shelter for rescues?
In the short term, we just want to be able to have the shelter for a couple of
Dogs that need more training and attention, or more urgently, that we need to urgently put somewhere until we can find a suitable foster home. That would really help out the Monty's Mutts dog rescue. If you're worried about staffing, we will staff overnight if we have dogs in, and we would not have dogs out past 11 o'clock if there's no need, other than just to go to the bathroom, and they would be supervised.
Well, thank you for answering my question. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? I had the chance of opening at Jeff, what you have there now, and it's excellent, and it is really needed in our community. So I'm looking forward to see how this progresses. If you wish to be notified of council's decision, please contact Colleen Soriel at City Hall. Now I'd ask for a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councillor Giacono, seconded by Councillor Plummer. All those in favor? This meeting, public meeting, is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Hinch.
City of Pembroke zoning bylaw 2020-05 to rezone the properties municipally known as 382 3rd Avenue from a residential Type 2-R2 zone to a residential Type 3-20-R3-20 zone to allow a proposed 3-unit converted building. Clerk, how was the report given, or how was the notice given?
Notice was given by mail to all owners of property within a 120-meter radius of the subject land and was posted on site on August 28, 2020.
Thank you. Ms. Osorio, could you give us the planning report, please?
An application for rezoning was received for 382 3rd Avenue. The applicant would like to rezone the property to allow for 3-unit converted dwelling house with a reduced interior side yard. There was a severance that was approved for 382 3rd Avenue in 2014, which created 2 lots. So the severed lot has a garage on it, and the retained lot has an existing 2-unit dwelling house on it. The property is sold, and the new owners would like to rezone the property to R3 to permit 3 dwelling units. They would like to use the 2 lots for this proposal. The vacant lot would be required for the parking spaces. However, the Planning Act does not permit these 2 lots to merge since it was already severed. And council may remember that an agreement was passed by council on July 14th, which prohibits the owners to convey the vacant lot by way of deed or transfer or enter into an agreement of sale and purchase unless the municipality consents to release this restrictive covenant agreement from all or part of the owner's land. This agreement protects the properties from being separated in the future. This agreement will be registered on title and will be incumbent upon future owners of 382 3rd Avenue. The official plan is residential, and the zoning would be changed to R3 to convert the interior of the house to allow 3 dwelling units, so there'd be no addition proposed. It fits in with the neighborhood. The only setback deficiency is the interior side yard. Instead of 10 feet, it's 1.5 feet. But again, that's existed there for many, many years. The parking requirements are met, the landscaping requirements are met, and it's consistent with the provincial policy statement. So the planning department is recommending its approval.
Thank you. Has there been any opposition to the application?
There's been no opposition to this application.
Has there been any support for the application?
There is support. The applicant, Mr. Lucas Sutton, was at the Planning Advisory and Adjustment Committee meeting, and he is definitely in supporting the application.
Okay, thank you. Would the Chair of Planning and Development comment, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. The committee really had no issues with this whatsoever. There is an agreement in place that does protect the properties in future, so it's good development.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council? If you wish to be notified of council's decision, please contact Colleen Soriel at City Hall. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by Councillor Abdallah, seconded by Councillor Reevy. All those in favor? Carried. This public meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
call the Finance and Admin Committee meeting for October 6th to order. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest, nature thereof? Deputy Mayor?
Mr. Chair, in respect to 7A, the monthly accounts, as our office appears on those accounts.
Noted. I entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda. Moved by Councillor Reevy, second by Councillor Abdallah. Those in favor? Approved. Approve the minutes of the Finance and Admin meeting of September 1st. Councillor Lafreniere, seconded by Councillor Reevy. All those in favor? Approved. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none. First delegation, the Global First Power presentation. Welcome.
am the Communications and Engagement Director for Global First Power, and Rosalie is our project manager. We're going to be jointly delivering the presentation. I'm going to do the start and the end, and Rose is going to do the middle, and I believe she is going to share the screen for our presentation. Are you able to see the first slide on your end?
Yes, we are.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We're happy to take questions either during the presentation or at the end, so don't be shy about jumping in. So thanks so much. It is great to be with you virtually today. And we had a great introductory meeting. Rose and I met with His Worship Mayor LeMay last year during the summer, and really appreciate the great questions and support that we got at that time, and hope to continue the dialogue with you and your community. So I think Rose is bringing us to the second slide, and I'm just waiting for it to come up.
Sorry, did you guys lose my screen there? No?
Yeah, we don't see. Oh, there it is.
Yep. So if you can just go to the second slide, please. So Global First Power is an Ontario-based energy company, and we want to help make small modular reactors, which is essentially a technology that existed for many decades already, but hasn't been deployed commercially. So if you think about the reactors that are used in nuclear submarines, for example, those are fundamentally small reactors, and there's been some really promising manufacturing developments that lead us to believe that there is a possibility to use that kind of technology on a commercial level to essentially replace diesel generation off of provincial electricity grids. So when you think about the power that you get, the electricity that you get in a city like Pembroke, that comes from a variety of sources. Of course, there's hydroelectric facilities in the Ottawa Valley. There are renewables, and about 60% of Ontario's current electricity production comes from nuclear production at sites like Pickering, Darlington, and Bruce. And so small modular reactors are really promising because it's the opportunity to use that proven nuclear technology at sites that are not currently served by provincial electricity grids. So you can imagine remote mines in Northern Ontario, or perhaps the Arctic, and other communities and locations that are off the electricity grid. And so really what we're trying to do is to commercialize that technology and provide an alternative to diesel so that we can have emissions-free electricity generation off-grid. Next slide, please, Rose. So Global First Power is a joint venture. The joint venture is between Ultrasafe Nuclear Corporation, which is a technology company based out of the United States, and they have designed this proprietary technology called the micromodular reactor technology. And so just to give you a sense of scale, whereas units at Pickering and Darlington would, are very large and would provide hundreds of megawatts of electricity. The size of the unit that we're talking about with our project is about 15 megawatts of thermal energy, and that translates into about 5 megawatts of electrical energy. And so 5 megawatts is roughly the amount of power that you would use to power the energy needs of a city of about 5,000 people. So if you look at a normal mine site, they might need between 10 and 20 megawatts. So you could imagine that they would use 2 or 4 of these modules. And then, of course, the other partner in our joint venture is Ontario Power Generation. Rose and I are both OPG GFP project, and OPG has 50 years of nuclear expertise. We produce about half of the power in Ontario, and we're a diverse generator, which means we use a whole bunch of different fuels to provide that power. So we have a solar farm near Nanticoke, the site of one of our former coal burning sites. We have biomass fuel generation that uses wood waste from the forest industry up in northwestern Ontario and Atikokan. We have our nuclear plants at Pickering and Darlington, as well as the facility that we lease to Bruce Power up in the Kincardine area. And we have 66 hydroelectric generating stations across the province. And so OPG's role on this is we're coordinating the project itself, leading the environmental assessment, and Indigenous and public engagement. Next slide, please, Rose. And I think this is where I turn it over to Rosalie.
Yes, thanks, Eric. So like Eric said, what we're proposing here is to construct and operate a 15 megawatt thermal small modular reactor, which equates to approximately 5 megawatts if that thermal energy is converted to electrical. You can do a combination of heat and power, or all heat or all power. It is the first step in commercializing the reactor technology that USNC, one of the joint venture partners, that they've designed. First step in commercializing the USNC micromodular reactor design to be clean, reliable, and provide energy benefits, particularly to remote locations, because the module is so small and can be constructed very quickly. Most of the manufacturing and construction done completely off-site. So this GFP hopes will serve as a model for SMR support of heavy industries such as mining operations and other off-grid uses, such as in communities that are currently relying on diesel power for their power generation needs. GFP's goals include demonstrating and building the confidence that not only this technology is safe, but also that the project, business, and commercial model stands true, including the cost, timelines, and performance of the micro SMR, and to enable future projects, as well as going through the whole licensing and regulatory process, which is very different for the regulator, the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, as this, like Eric said, is a very small project that the regulator may not be very used to having to license. And this graphic here shows the reactor situated underground in this brown area representing the ground, and the size of a person right here to show the scale. So on to the next slide here. This is our facility layout, and it consists of two main parts. The nuclear plant and then the adjacent plant. So the nuclear plant produces the heat, the 15 megawatts thermal of process heat, that can then be converted to electrical power on the other side, the adjacent plant. Total the facility footprint, including the fenced area, would be about 4, no bigger than 5 soccer pitches. Most of the, I'd say 60% of the footprint is actually attributed to that adjacent plant side as opposed to the nuclear facility. And this also includes offices, training facilities, and a visitor center. This picture is just an illustration, actually shows what the layout would be for 2 reactors. At the Chalk River site, we are proposing just 1 reactor. So a few facts about the micromodular reactor technology from USNC. Here, so it's an advanced passive safety system where safety is built into the design. So the reactor will safely shut down in the absence of electrical power, operator interaction, so you don't need to have human interaction to shut it down, and engineering controlled actions. That's what we call passive safety systems. There's also no external power or water required to operate or cool the reactor. The heat generated from the core is removed through the natural convection of the helium gas. There would be no sudden temperature increases. The reactor is designed to switch itself off in the unlikely event of an accident. So again, we are here to construct high quality heat, generate high quality heat, for electricity or other heat applications, constructed, tested, and accepted off-site, and then assembled on-site. Minimal operations and maintenance required, scalable model, so that these are set-sized reactors, modularized and brought to site as the power needs require. We're doing this first commercial demonstration as just 1 reactor, but there can be future projects where there will be multiple units, multiple reactors within 1 facility. Again, designed by USNC, and it's based on technology in use since 2000, and similar designs are in service in China and Japan, with successful demonstrations in US and Germany. The anticipated life is 20 years, and it does not require refueling. So it's fueled once and then lasts for 20 years, and then would be properly decommissioned, and fuel would be put into safe storage. So 1 MMR, 1 micromodular reactor, could replace 263 million liters of diesel over its life. This now is a rough timeline, a very high level timeline for planning purposes. It's very similar to the timeline that we showed to the public in a town hall, a virtual town hall that we presented, open to anyone around the world, virtually in May. We've made a few small changes to this to show some extended timelines in the site preparation and construction areas, and the project development phase. As we go along, we will continue to refine this timeline. There's still a lot of uncertainties and dependencies with the Chalk River site and the regulator, so this timeline will continue to evolve. It shows that first power could be anywhere in the late 2024, early 2025 period, more likely the 2025 period. Throughout this, of course, you'll see that there's Indigenous, public, and stakeholder engagement, ongoing outreach, and opportunities for involvement from the public, regardless of the phase we're in. We are currently in the environmental assessment and project development phase, and our EA was initiated and our license to prepare the site, one of several licenses, has also been initiated. So with that, I'll pass it back to Eric. Oh, seems like we have lost Eric. I'm not sure what happened. Okay, I can speak to this while he jumps back on. Indigenous and public engagement. We wanted to highlight here that our intent is, of course, to engage early and engage often. So we have had early engagement with Indigenous communities since the onset of the licensing process, the license to prepare site process last year. And the communities we have been engaging with include the Algonquins of Pikwakanagan, Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation Tribal Council, ANTC on the Quebec side, Algonquin Nation Secretariat, Algonquins of Ontario, or AOO, the Métis Nation of Ontario, and William Treaty's First Nation. We're committed to ongoing communications and engagements with the Indigenous communities in the area, as well as community and stakeholders. Like I said, in May, we had a virtual town hall or a telephone town hall. We continue to provide updates on our website, globalfirstpower.com, and are planning further outreach beginning later this fall into winter. And the CNSC also runs their own public input opportunities as well. For example, through the summer, they had an intervention opportunity for comments on the scope of the environmental assessment that we would be, GFP's project would be subject to. And that resulted in August with a final decision being that the scope of the environmental assessment would be as per the Canadian Environmental Assessment Act of 2012, CIA 2012. So next, current status and priorities. Just notes here. So the environmental consultant has been retained to support the environmental assessment. We have retained a very experienced consultant that actually brings in a lot of subcontractors who are also experienced in working on nuclear projects and large environmental assessments. So we have contracted with them, and they're reviewing baseline environmental reports for the area right now. Like I said, we received the CNSC's decision on the scope of the environmental assessment. Oh, and here is Eric. Hi, Eric.
I am sorry about that. I mean, Murphy's Law, right? Internet worked fine until I needed to present, and then here I am.
No problem. I'm almost just finished, actually, so I don't mind just carrying out with the last few bullets here, and then I think we're on to questions after that.
Thank you, Rose.
So where am I? We're reviewing and assessing the existing environmental baseline work that was already completed by CNL, Canadian Nuclear Laboratories, which we, GFP, have purchased for use as our baseline data for our environmental assessment. We're in the midst of also confirming the preferred site within the Chalk River property. So there was originally 10 possible sites within Chalk River, the Chalk River Laboratory site. And we've gotten that down to 3, and we are close to picking what we think would be the preferred site, looking at various criteria related to, of course, environmental effects, and also proximity to services and interconnections with the CRL site. We continue our discussions on interfaces with CRL, those interconnections or interfaces, such as project and site services, and the potential for CNL to take the energy from the reactor, whether it be in the form of heat or power. Our continued Indigenous and public outreach will also be a big focus for the late fall and into next year as we prepare to submit the draft environmental impact statement. So I think that is it for the slides. Eric, any closing thoughts, or shall we open it up for questions?
Oh, I'm happy to answer any questions that that council and the mayor might have.
Councilor Abdallah?
Thanks for the presentation. Great example of how partnerships with CNL and Global First Power can create jobs and new technology to help lower the carbon footprint in the world. And I'm sure there's a market for it. Do you have an estimate? Maybe this is premature, but do you have an estimate of what you would sell this for on the retail market once it's all developed in that? Or is that not? Does that come into play? Must have some idea.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think at CRL is we need to do a commercial demonstration to prove that SMRs can be cost competitive with diesel. And we believe that's possible. As if one of the challenges with diesel is, from a competition perspective, diesel is relatively inexpensive because once you burn it, the pollution goes, up a chimney and then becomes someone else's problem. In fact, all of our problem. And so competing against diesel on price is difficult because we, of course, are responsible for managing any waste indefinitely. And so one of the things that I think pushed OPG as a partner to moving forward with this project is that vendors have talked about the promises of SMRs for a very long time, but we haven't been able to answer, Councillor, the very question that you asked, which is, if I want to buy one, how much will it cost and when will it be ready? And so this demonstration project is really designed to answer that question. So I'm not trying to dodge the question. We expect that the project itself at Chalk River is going to cost about $180 million to build. And then if we have a offtake contract for either heat or for electricity, that would pay for the operations of the project for 20 years of that commercial demonstration. But really the point of this is to build something so that we can prove that it's doable, that the economic model is cost competitive and sustainable, and that it's safe, that the technology works the way that we believe that it can, and then use this as the jumping off point for further sales. So we don't expect to make any money on this initial project. We do think, though, that if you look around the Canadian market, that it would be reasonable to think that you could sell, let's say, half a dozen of these units, in the decade after it comes online, and thereby pay for the cost of the demonstration. And indeed, we think the market is larger than that, but that we're trying to go in with relatively modest goals that we can hit.
Councillor Freddie?
Just further to the question from Councillor Abdallah, in your presentation, you said that these type of facilities already exist. I believe you said in China, Germany, and the US. So would they not have a benchmark of profit or sellability or proof? Would they not have that track record?
Thank you, Councillor. Again, it's a great question. Most of the, and I want to draw the distinction between the technology being proven versus the commercial model being proven. So when I talked earlier about these, similar units being used, on submarines, or for example, the research reactor at McMaster University, those projects don't need to have a commercial rate of return, because it's not about the dollars and cents, it's about the value of the technology. When you think about a submarine, making it quiet, right? Being able to go a long distance without refueling, that has value beyond what you would spend on the fuel. So what this is about is, what are the commercial possibilities of this technology? And that's really what we're trying to prove. So it's not, we're not doing laboratory type testing to find out if it works. We're doing business type testing to see if we're as competitive in the marketplace as we believe we can be.
Sure.
So just another question. After the 20 years of anticipated lifespan, it would be decommissioned, but would the site still be used for the next one, or would it have to be at a totally different site?
That's probably a question that that CRL or CNL might want to answer. They certainly have ambitions of building essentially a clean energy park that could be used for hydrogen production, to host various SMR technologies. And so they will probably have a better answer to that than we will. We're focused very much on building something, getting it licensed, getting it operating, being able to bring prospective buyers to the site, show them the maintenance logs, show them the technology, and let them see how this could be a solution for them. To go back again to diesel, one of the interesting challenges with diesel is you can't buy diesel futures. So if you are having a mine that's going to open in 2025, and you know it's going to run for 20 years based on the mineral resources that you found at the site, you can arrange for diesel generators to power your mine, but you don't know what the cost of diesel is going to be 15 years from now or 10 years from now, not only because of the uncertainties of the market itself, but also potentially carbon pricing, for example. Whereas in theory, we should be able to come up with a all-in fixed price contract for energy needs that would last the 20-year lifespan. So part of the reason we want to run for 20 years is to demonstrate that we can have a unit that is fueled once and runs for 20 years without any additional fuel shipments.
Councillor Giacono?
Thank you. Very interesting presentation. I know that approximately 15% of Canada's electricity is produced by the nuclear industry, probably 40% in Ontario. It's zero greenhouse emission factor, which is a good thing for all of us, especially when we're sort of going into a climate crisis, so to speak. My question is, the regular nuclear reactor that you would have at CNL uses rods that go into the reactor, which produce a reaction. Byproduct is probably, one of them may be tritium. What happens to that product after? And does this small nuclear reactor have the same principles? Does it use rods? Is it different? Can you explain that to me? And what waste product is produced, and where will it be stored?
Great questions. Rose, do you want to take the first stab at this?
Sure. So in terms of whether there will be control rods, yes. And that has been part of the design. It's USNC has developed a very innovative fuel pellet that would be used in this reactor, and it has the fuel itself is a safety system, And so fission products would be encased in the silicon carbide fuel, the shell of that fuel pellet. So that is the first level of containment of fission products. Eric, do you want to take the question on the long-term waste? Again, there's no refueling of this reactor. So the final waste stream comes at the end of the 20-year useful life.
Right. So thanks, Councillor. Great question, and thank you, Rose, for talking about the technical pieces. All nuclear plants generate waste, and we categorize that into 3 levels. So from the lowest level of radioactivity to the highest. The lowest level we call low-level waste, and that would be things like mop heads that would be used to mop up any irradiated water that was spilled because of a leak at one of the large plants. When you have medium level waste, you might talk about, or another example of low level waste would be the plastics that would be used, the plastic suits that would be used by workers who are handling irradiated materials. Then in intermediate waste, you would have things like resins and filters that are used in the reactor itself. And then at the highest level, you have used fuel. And when you think about the traditional CANDU reactors that we get power from in Ontario right now, when the fuel originally goes into the reactor, it's natural uranium, it's very low level of radioactivity. Our workers at OPG plants handle those fuel bundles wearing cotton gloves to keep the oils on our skin from contaminating the rods. That's the only protection they need. But when they come out of the reactor at the end of their useful life, they are much more substantially radioactive and have to be cooled for some time and then stored very carefully. So I would say that that high level waste, that used fuel, GFP imagines that we would be able to cite that in the nuclear waste management organizations. They call it adaptive phase management. It's essentially an underground vault where used nuclear fuel can safely cool and be stored over long term. And because we are talking about a reactor that has a much smaller output of energy, the volume of that fuel is fairly small. So you could imagine it would be the total amount of used fuel waste after 20 years would probably be about the size of a dishwasher. And so that fuel could be relatively easily stored in the long-term repository that the Nuclear Waste Management Organization is looking at. And the other low and intermediate level fuels, waste, could be stored potentially on site at CNL if that was something that they were comfortable with and we negotiated, or potentially at another site, including potentially OPG sites.
Thank you. Very interesting. Could you explain to me the difference between this small modular reactor as opposed to the reactor that is at the Royal Military College in Kingston?
Good question. I would say that they would probably be similar in output and similar in technology. The biggest differences, I think, and I'm not a technical expert, so I might get myself into trouble here, but I believe that it would be, one, we are looking at using an enriched fuel which allows us to get 20 years of life out of a single load. So we would be looking at a higher level of enriched uranium than we would use in other Canadian sites. The other key difference, I think, is the modularity, and that is we're looking at using advances in manufacturing to tap into the same principle that allows cost savings to be realized through advanced manufacturing and makes the thousandth of a kind widget less expensive than the first of a kind or only of a kind. And so we believe that we can use manufacturing techniques to create modules that could be used together or successively, so that whether you had a project in Nunavut or a project in Northwestern Ontario, it's using the exact same technology, made in the same factory, and is licensed in a predictable way based on our understanding of how all that technology works. Whereas most of the current reactors we have in Canada, including, I would think, the one at the Royal Military College, would have been more unique in their fabrication.
Yeah, Eric, I'd also add that that reactor is a research reactor. So that reactor can be refueled and can be adapted to do tests and provide learning opportunities for students in the nuclear industry. Our Global First Power Micromodular Reactor, the intent would not be to refuel it or to do any experimental tests on the way it operates or the type of fuel that's used.
Thanks, Rose. Great points.
Okay. Well, I'd certainly like to thank you for the great presentation, informing council, and seeing any other further questions, then we say thank you and good night.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate your time and interest. All the best.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, 6B, 2019 draft financial statements. That's you. Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you all have a copy of the financial statements. I have extras if necessary. There were a couple of minor changes to it that we discovered a line slipped in one of the schedules, but I don't think it's going to change what I'm speaking to, so I'll just stick with that original draft. These financial statements are the financial statements of the Corporation of the City of Pembroke for the year ended December 31st, 2019. They are consolidated financial statements, meaning they include all enterprises of council, which include the Library Board, BIA, and your on a proportionate consolidation basis, your share of the airport and the Waste Management Board, and on a modified equity basis, your interest in the Ottawa River Energy Solutions and Ottawa River Power Corporations. The financial statements are prepared on what we call a PSAB basis, Public Sector Accounting Board basis, which provides for full accrual for capital assets and all liabilities, including unfunded liabilities such as landfill sites and post-employment benefits. So they're essentially converted to from your records to a financial statements that's very similar to a for-profit organization or business financial statement. You come up with a net income number that would be similar to what a business would have. Page 3 in the package details the various reports that are part of this package. I won't go into all of these, but I'll go into some more than others. Page 4, first of all, is our independent auditors report to members of council, inhabitants, and ratepayers of the Corporation of the City of Pembroke. We have audited the consolidated statement of financial position for the year ended December 31st, 2019. As well as the consolidated statement of operations, change in net financial assets and cash flows for the year then ended, and the notes to the financial statements as well. In our opinion, these financial statements present fairly your financial position as at December 31st, 2019, and your results of operations for the year then ended. We've conducted our audit in accordance with Canadian Generally Accepted Auditing Standards. The report is 2 pages long, so we won't go into it in detail, but you have your roles, we have our roles, and in our opinion, the financial statements are materially correct. The report will be dated, it's not dated yet, it'll be dated tonight, October 6th, hoping you'll pass a motion to approve the financial statements after my presentation. Page 6 is the consolidated statement of financial position. Out of all the pages in the whole report, this is probably the most, to me, the most valuable and the key statement for you. The province each year, when they get, we prepare another report for you called the Financial Information Return that is sent to the province of Ontario. There's a more detailed financial statement of financial position that's provided with that, but the province prepares 7 financial indicators based on that FIR. 6 of those 7 reports come from the statement of financial position. So this statement of financial position is the main statement they use to assess your overall financial condition. As we go through, they've done it for 2018. I'll give you an update as to what they're probably going to say for 2019 based on these numbers. Bottom line, you have an accumulated surplus at the end of the year of $138,189,833. So that's, when we get to the next page, you'll see that your overall surplus has increased by a little over $7 million. So if you were a for-profit entity, you would have had, you would say you had profit of over $7 million this year. So your financial position improved by PSAB standards by that amount. Maybe right now would be a good time to turn to Schedule 5 on page 14, which details that surplus. So that accumulated surplus of $138 million roughly is comprised of total reserve funds of $9,132,194, reserves of $10,461,348. Total reserves and reserve funds were $19,593,542. That's up a little from last year, roughly $250,000 over last year. Last year you had reserves and reserve funds of $19,352,743. Under surpluses, your investments in tangible capital assets increased by roughly $5.6 million. At the end of the year, your capital asset investments were $106,704,409. So that's comprised of your capital assets at cost less depreciation minus outstanding debt plus unexpended capital financing in the capital fund. Your general revenue fund surplus at the end of the year was very healthy, $1,526,487. That's comprised of the city surplus of $1,493,000 roughly and a BIA surplus of roughly $33,000. So you ended the year with a very strong surplus position, which puts you in a good position going into the new year in terms of trying to budget for operations. The Landfill Operations Board is reported on a consolidated basis, so this is your share of the landfill operations deficit of your share is $61,829. You had equity in your municipal electric utilities at the end of the year of $13,028,708. And then in addition to that, you had unfunded liabilities. So these are liabilities that under Public Sector Accounting Board standards, we have to report as liabilities, but there are future liabilities for you as a municipality. You don't have to raise those funds now from your current tax levy. You can wait until you actually have to pay those liabilities and raise those tax funds to pay for them in those specific years. But at the end of the year, there were unfunded employment benefits and post-employment liabilities of $2,219,253 and landfill closure and post-closure liabilities of $382,239. Total surpluses then are $118,596,291, and if you add the reserves and reserve funds and your surpluses, you get to your combined accumulated surplus that we report. Again, it's an increase of a little over $7 million, so it's been a very good year for you financially. Back to page 6. Looking at the makeup of that, total financial assets were $47,462,831. Total liabilities at the end of the year were $28,982,180. If you subtract liabilities from financial assets, it gets you to the number we report of net financial assets of $18,480,651. That's up roughly $3.4 million over last year at $15,331,918. How I like to explain that number is that is all of your assets excluding capital assets. So if you were to close your doors on December 31st, collect all your receivables, pay all your bills, you would have roughly $18 million in the bank, $18,480,000 in the bank, which is, if you look at your comparators to other, your comparator municipalities, it's a very strong position. A lot of them are in negative positions. You're in a very strong positive position. So the ministry would rank you, they consider you low risk in that category. So it's a very strong position for you. Then to come up with accumulated surplus, we have to add non-financial assets, which are your tangible capital assets plus prepaid expenses totaling to $119,709,182 to come up with your accumulated surplus. Looking at just some highlights, at the end of the year you had cash of $29,589,657. The financial indicators classify that as low risk, so you're very strong, you have a very strong cash position. Taxes receivable at the end of the year dropped to $1,667,104 this year, down $407,000 from last year, which is terrific. Again, your tax receivable amounts are considered a low-risk category, so you're in a strong position in terms of your taxes receivable as well. Yeah, I won't, unless a specific question, I won't go into the other amounts other than those two. I have explanations if necessary, but they're fairly similar to last year. Maybe I look at accounts receivable are down quite a bit. They're down about $800,000 from last year. That's just a function of the number of capital grants outstanding at the end of the year. Nothing alarming there. Looking at liabilities, you may look at loan payable of $21,047 and wonder what that is. Well, that's your share of the airport loan. The airport had a small loan at the end of the year, and on a consolidated basis, your share is just $21,000. Accounts payable and accrued liabilities were up roughly $1.8 million this year. That again is a function of some fairly large capital projects at the end of the year. Long-term liabilities, we'll get to that when we get to the notes. You'll see that you paid your debt down to the tune of roughly $1.7 million this year. Your level of debt, the ministry considers you to be in a moderate category. If they do a calculation of your debt payments each year, and if your debt is between 5 and 10%, if your debt payment, your annual repayments, principal and interest are between 5 and 10% of your annual revenues, you're considered in a moderate category. Your debt payments are at 5.9%. So you're just over that threshold to be in the moderate category. If you follow your normal debt retirement pattern and borrow no new funds by the year 2021 to 22 roughly, you'll be in a low-risk category by 21-22 if you follow your current pattern without borrowing more. So really, it's considered moderate risk, but it's on the low end of the scale. So you're very close to low risk in that category as well. So you're meeting the test that the province provides very well. Moving on to page 7, the consolidated statement of operations. This statement details your revenues for the year, expenses, and provides annual surplus. So you can see that total revenues on a consolidated basis were $42,972,128. Expenses $35,937,062 for an annual surplus under PSAB principles of $7,035,066. That differs, of course, from your surplus that you're used to seeing from your records of the operating surplus of $1.5 million, because this takes into account capitalizing assets versus depreciation, changes in reserves, and so on. You started with accumulated surplus amounts of $131,154,767, ended with $138,189,833. So strong position. Even I don't know if I spoke to reserves. Your reserves as well are considered. Your level of reserves has you in what the province would call a low-risk category as well. So for a municipality your size, you have a good, strong level of reserves as well. So I'm giving you a good report all around here tonight. Page 8 is the statement of changes in net financial assets. So this really takes your surplus number and adjusts it to the change in surplus without accounting for capital assets and prepaid expenses. So this ties into that net financial asset number I spoke to. The next page, page 9, is a statement of cash flows. Again, on a consolidated basis, you start with your annual surplus, adjust for items from operations that don't have a cash impact, and it adjusts to you generating roughly, $15,657,472 from operations. You used $1,716,000 to cover debt payments. Your investment in your investments and the municipal electric utilities increased by $245,720. So that's part of a surplus, but it doesn't represent cash. It sits as an investment. And then you acquired on a net basis new tangible capital assets the year of $9,634,954. So overall, your cash position improved this year. You can see third number from the bottom by $4,060,000. So you had a really good year in terms of your cash position as well. Part of that is because your payables increased by roughly $1.8 million, so it's a little artificially stated, but really, even if you factor in that payables are increased, if those payables had been paid by year end, you still would have had an improvement of roughly $2.2 million in your cash position. So again, a good report in that regard. Page 10 is a schedule of reserves and reserve funds. I won't go into that in detail, but it provides good information on it, along with Schedule 2, provides good information on the categories of reserves and reserve funds, where those funds came from, the interest earned during the year, and what they're used for, transfers to operation and to capital. Looking at a high level, you can see that you maintained your reserve level. You increased them by roughly $240,000, even while transferring over $2 million of reserves to capital. So even with those big uses of reserves this year, you still maintain your reserve position. Again, a good report on that. Schedule 2 is a schedule of reserve funds. It shows the continuity. I won't go into those in detail unless there were specific questions. Schedule 3 details deferred revenues obligatory. So they're really, in a way, we used to call them reserve funds, but the province now wants them to be called deferred revenue, obligatory deferred revenue. So these are comprised of your development charges, cash in lieu and parkland, and provincial and federal gas tax. You can see that you had a large use of your federal gas tax funds this year. You used a little over $2 million for Victoria Street this year. So again, even though you had some major capital usages of these obligatory reserves, you still are in a strong, there's still $2 million left at the end of the year. So you're still in a strong position there. Schedule 4, page 13, is the schedule of tangible capital assets. So this is presented on by asset class and by functional classification. It's a very busy looking schedule, but it details your capital assets. This is the schedule where the one you have, one of the columns got shifted. So under accumulated amortization, the totals got shifted one column, but that's been changed already, and it's in my revised draft. It'll obviously be changed for your final copy. The next schedule is Schedule 5, which is the schedule of accumulated surplus that we looked at. And as I said, your almost every category here where they would assess you would be in the low risk category. You've got a good level of reserves, you've got a good operating surplus, you've got good cash, you've got a good level of paid for tangible capital assets. It's all good. The next page, Schedule 6, is another busy schedule that's required under PSAP principles, schedule submandated disclosure. So it isolates your revenues and expenditures on a more detailed basis by functional classification. Next then is page 16, and it begins with a summary of the significant accounting policies that you follow. So you're following nationally recognized accounting standards, so all municipalities in Canada follow the same standards. So your financial statements are comparable to financial statements across the country. Up until about 10 or 12 years ago, each province had its own accounting policies for municipalities. So you couldn't compare Pembroke with a city in British Columbia, for example. But now all Canadian municipalities have comparable accounting policies and can be compared. I won't get into the policies. They haven't changed since last year. They're standard policies for, Canadian municipalities. Looking through the notes then, turning to your cash on page 19. So out of that cash position, which again is a strong cash position, but a little over $11 million of that is restricted cash to fund your obligatory reserves and reserve funds. Your investments are comprised of, there's a breakdown of your investments. Actually, you're looking at that and you may be wondering, we didn't know we had investments, and you really don't. This is your share of investments with the Waste Management Board and with the airport. So again, it arises because you're preparing the financial statements on a consolidated basis. Note 4, again, is it's your investment in the 2 hydro utilities. It's a very comprehensive note, but it's the disclosure required under PSAB. So what it does, we've detailed your investment in the 2 utilities and provided a concise summary of their financial statements. So your investment, I understand that for 2020, they've advised you that there's no payment coming, but to date, you've had very significant investment income from those 2 utilities. So you've done, so far, up until 2019, you've done very, very well by maintaining and keeping those utilities. You've had a very, very good return on your investment there. Moving on, note 5, it just refers to that small loan payable, which is your share of the airport loan. Note 6 is long-term liabilities. Total long-term debt at the end of the year was $18,720,410. Maybe if we have time, I'll just run through very quickly what all the various loans are for. The first one for $492,900 is your share of debentures that were taken out in 2002 for the waste management site. That, good news, will be paid off in 2022. So that's one of your, that's one of the earlier ones to mature. Similar, the next set of debentures is also for the waste management site. It'll mature in 2020. It's only $12,000. The serial debentures for $5,461,000 were taken out in 2006. That was for a pollution control plant and for Miramichi Lodge. So there's still another 7 years to go on that. They are with Ontario Loan Corporation, Ontario Infrastructure Loan Corporation. It's had various acronyms, but the most recent one is OLIC. The $100,000 will be paid off in the year we're in. That was borrowed for roads, again from OLIC. The next set of debentures at $3,174,992 was taken out in 2012. It won't mature until 2042. That was for Cecilia Street construction and for the Lake Street and Pembroke Street bridges. Those rates, they're all very good rates, but Angela just provided me with the newest rates. The newest rates from OLIC are just astonishing. That right now you're looking at probably borrowing for 20 years at 2% or less. Yeah, I was shocked to see the current borrowing rates. Not that I'm encouraging you to borrow, but if you had to, the rates are certainly very good. Much better than I thought these were good rates. The new rates are much better. The serial debentures maturing in 2045 were taken out in 2015 for the OPP station. The next loan, 361,043, is due to Otter River Energy Solutions. You borrowed that money to convert your streetlights to LED bulbs. The next 2 amounts are small, your share of small capital leases for the Waste Management Board. And finally, the final serial debentures of $4,962,998 were debentures taken out for the fire hall and the pumping station in 2018. So if you're looking at, the ministry's provided you with a 2020 annual repayment limit. It's not quite accurate because it's taken into account your 2018 debt repayment, but the 2018 debt repayment calculation from the FIR doesn't fully take into account the debt payment on the newest loan for the fire hall. So that repayment limit that the province had provided for 2020 is a little high on the high end because they haven't taken into account your debt that was taken on and fully taken on in 2019. I'll talk to, if you like, afterwards about maybe I'll speak to it right now. Based on the province's own calculations, you have a remaining repayment limit of $6,130,000 is what you, under what the province would allow you to increase your annual payments by. At 5% over 15 years, keeping in mind the current rates are now just 2%, but at 5% over 15 years, that would let you borrow $66 million. So over 20 years, $85 million. So your real debt capacity is really probably in the range of somewhere between $80 and $100 million, which is an enormous number that I would obviously never recommend that you borrow. But if you were considering borrowing for a project, you could probably borrow, especially at this 2% rate, you could probably borrow in the range of 10 to 15 million and still be considered in that moderate risk category. You would want Ansel to do an exact calculation for you, but it's a surprising number to me, you know. Continuing on, page 24 is a continuation of note 6, long-term liabilities. It just details what your principal payments are for the next 5 years and thereafter. So you can see you're paying your debt down. This year you'll be coming down by roughly 1.7 million, 2021 1.6, and declining accordingly. Note 7 speaks to employee benefits and post-employment liabilities. So these are liabilities that we accrue for accounting purposes that you don't have to raise taxes for at the moment. So these are future liabilities that you have. Out of all these, so they total to 2.2 million roughly. You have reserves set aside for $388,000. You've set aside a reserve for the sick leave. So you have, the only department now that you have that accumulates sick leave is the fire department. It's been frozen for everyone else. So there is a reserve set aside to cover the fire department sick leave, but there's no reserves for anything else. They're on a pay-as-you-go basis going forward. You'll have to budget for those each year. Carrying on page 25, some fairly detailed information about the actuarial calculation that was done to give us an estimate of what those liabilities are. Note 9 just speaks to the landfill closure. Because it's a consolidated statement, we have to disclose your share of landfill liabilities. Note 9 speaks to that. Note 10 speaks to expenditures by object. So the expenditures in the financial report are reported by function. This just converts them to object. Other than that, the other notes are fairly standard. Note 15, again, is another, it's all PSAB required, but it just provides information on your joint local boards. So you consolidate your share of those, but this provides a summary of their total assets. And the final note is note 18. If you're involved with not-for-profit organizations or other audits, you'll see that we've got the standard COVID notes saying that we're not sure what impact COVID may have on operations. That's my report. Gone through, I know, very quickly, but I can say I think you've had a very good year financially, and you're in a good financial position at the end of the year going forward, especially with that large surplus to deal with and all the other, you've pretty much met all the financial indicators with flying colors, except for your debt payment limit, which is close. But I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone had.
Any questions for Mr. Sinclair? Seeing none, thank you very much for the, Deputy Mayor.
Not a question, Mr. Chair, just to thank you, Mr. Sinclair, for coming this evening. I'd like to say that I think over the last, I don't know how many years, as long as I've been sitting here, I suspect or I believe that council has always had an even hand ensuring that we had a good financial position, because I know year after year, which is always good,
yeah.
Year after year you come forward and indicate that we're in a very strong position. And in the last number of years, the comment has been made in respect to the long-term loans that we've just edged into the moderate, but when we see that a number of those long-term debentures are going to mature shortly, I think a great amount of kudos should go to staff with the former treasurer and the current treasurer to have a very aggressive repayment program in respect to the long-term debt. So having said all of that, I believe all council will concur with that. I put a motion on the floor to approve the audited report that you proposed.
Second by Councillor Reevy. All in favor? Approved unanimously.
Okay, thanks, everyone, and good evening.
Thank you.
There is just as added business, Angela, there is a form, a rep letter that has to be signed, and there's also a management report that goes with it to be signed by Mayor LeMay and Angela as well as treasurer. If you could get those to me, please, at your leisure. Thanks very much, everyone.
All right, we'll let Mr. Sinclair move himself, and we'll move on to new business. Monthly accounts. Ms. Lochte. Deputy Mayor has left the table.
So the monthly accounts report summarizes the payments made to vendors, payroll, as well as electronic payments for the months of June and July. All payments are made within allocated budgets approved by council, and this item is presented for information.
Any questions from council to Ms. Lochte about the accounts? Seeing none. Next item, 2021 OPV billing.
Staff have received the 2021 annual billing statement for OPP policing services provided to the city. So this contract will increase from $4,251,282 in 2020 to $4,408,097 in 2021, which is an increase of 3.7% or $156,815. This amount will be reduced by approximately $76 due to a 2019 year-end reconciliation adjustment, and the cost per property is estimated to be $629.82. So this information will be included in the 2021 budget and is provided for information purposes.
Any questions to Ms. Lochte about the OPP billing? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item then. Replacement of traffic control signals and pedestrian crossing devices along 41-148 connecting link, tender contract number 21-1239. Mr. Lewis, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Operations Department recommends the following. Committee approve award for the replacement of traffic control signals and pedestrian crossing devices along the Highway 41-148 connecting link. Tender contract number 21-1239 to Bonashare Excavating, Inc. in the amount of $1,684,904.50 plus HST. Committee approve additional expenditures in the amount of $84,245 for a contingency allowance. The total value of the recommendations equal $1,769,149.50 plus applicable HST. The contract was publicly advertised and tendered with 2 bids being received. Tenders were opened on September 30th by the Deputy Treasurer and the city's buyer. McIntosh Perry, the design consultant for the project, reviewed and analyzed the bids and found them to be comparable. Tenders were not opened in public due to the current COVID-19 pandemic. However, bidders were provided with unofficial bid opening results following the tender opening. The bids received, HST extra, were RGT Kluche Construction with a contract value of $1,674,623. Bonashare Excavating, Inc. with a value of $1,684,904.50. The bid received from RGT Kluche Construction Limited contained a major irregularity as they failed to provide unit pricing and total cost for a line item in the form of tender. As per the procurement policy, the Deputy Treasurer automatically rejected this bid. Subcontractors were not identified in the bids. Based on the consultant's pre-bid estimate, the bids received were higher than anticipated. This was due to a number of factors, which include additional works required by ORPC for powering the new traffic signals, relocation of some utilities, and the inclusion of backup power supply. Staff have reviewed potential cost savings, and these are included in the financial implications section of the report. So I have included those cost savings. The pedestrian crossover warrants have been reviewed in detail with staff as well as the consultant. and results in an approximate $100,000 savings at the William Street intersection, as well as at the Elizabeth Street intersection. Another cost savings measure included in the recommendation is reducing the sidewalk and curb reconstruction at the pedestrian crossover locations. This will only address the AODA compliance that are mandated, and it has an approximate cost savings of $40,000. It will bring the actual crossover to AODA standard, but will leave the rest of the intersection without AOD compliance until further work can be completed in the future. Another cost savings included is the removing of the traffic signal preemption option from the traffic signals. That's a cost savings of approximately $25,000. I did have a conversation with the fire chief regarding that preemption, and he's fine with the fact we're taking it out for this part, and it'll be looked at for a future install on the traffic signals. In the 2020 budget, $1,465,295 was allocated for the traffic signal replacement, with $1,318,765 being funded by the province of Ontario. The city's share was estimated at $146,530. Project costs, as revised with the above noted cost savings include design, contract administration, construction, additional expenditures, and the net HST. That totals $1,693,358.14 and represents a budget shortfall of $228,063.14. For our unsuccessful ISIP Green Stream application that was related to the Town Line Force Main project, we had general capital reserves that were allocated for the city's share. The remaining $192,444 in that allocation could be used to fund the shortfall in the Connecting Link project, along with remaining surpluses from completed 2020 capital projects. Based on acceptance of the recommendations, the contract value will be amended by change order after award. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Frenny.
I would move we support the recommendation to award this contract to the aforementioned contractor, as well as funding the shortfall from the remaining surpluses from both the ISIP Green application that was turned down and any other works incompleted or surplus.
Councillor Giacono?
Just second motion.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Rive.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering about when we're looking at the cost savings items, and in particular the pedestrian crossover and how it relates to the AODA, the standards. So you say it would be just the crossover that would be compliant, but the rest of the intersection would not. I don't know what that looks like when you talk about
Through you,
the rest
Mr.
of the
Chair.
intersection.
What we try to do when we're doing any type of work close to an intersection, close proximity to an intersection or a pedestrian crossover, whether that's at a stop sign, traffic signals, in this case, an actual pedestrian crossover, we try to encompass the entire intersection. So all four quadrants of the intersection, as well as in this case, the pedestrian crossover. So we'd actually have 6 areas where AOD compliance would be put in place. We had originally included that in the design. It is included in the tendered price. However, to help with cost savings, the quadrants at the adjacent intersection will be taken out. There still will be AODA compliance for the crossover itself. The signals will be AODA compliant. The sidewalk approach to the pedestrian crossover will still have the Twizzies. It still will have the AODA compliance, but the adjacent intersection will not. And we'll do that in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Any further questions? Then we have a motion and a second. Then I call a question. All those in favor? Approved unanimously. Thank you. Next up is the Town Line Station Generator Replacement and Miscellaneous Building Repairs Tender Contract 2020-19072-01. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Operations Department recommends the following. Committee approve award for the Town Line Lift Station Generator Replacement and Miscellaneous Building Repairs tender contract number 2020-19072-01 to JWK Utilities and Site Services Limited in the amount of $109,750 plus HST, that being the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. Committee approve additional expenditures in the amount of $5,488 for a contingency allowance. The total value of the recommendations equal $115,238 plus applicable HST. The supply of the generator was awarded to Gal Power Systems on September 1st of this year and has been pre-ordered, and that was done due to a lengthy lead time. This contract for installation was publicly advertised and tendered. 4 bids were received. The tenders were opened on October 1st and were evaluated by the city's deputy treasurer and the supervisor of capital works. Ainley Graham and Associates, the design consultant, reviewed and analyzed the bids and found them to be comparable. Again, tenders were not opened in public due to the current COVID-19 pandemic. However, bidders were provided with unofficial bid opening results following the tender opening. Bids were received as follows. JWK Utilities, $109,750. Rondo Electric, $130,390. Black & McDonald, $158,700. And Claybar Contracting, $470,800. The bid received from Rondo Electric, 1997 Limited, contained a major irregularity as their bid submission did not contain an agreement to bond, which was a requirement of the tender document. The deputy treasurer automatically rejected this bid as per the procurement policy. As part of the 2020 capital budget, a budget of $300,000 is identified for the town line lift station generator replacement. Previously, engineering design services for the town line force main upgrades, as well as the generator replacement, was awarded to Ainley Graham and Associates. As previously noted, the supply and delivery of the generator was awarded to Gal Power Systems for a cost of $209,560.16. Total cost for the generator installation, including a contingency allowance, contract administration, net HST, is $144,761.23, represents a budget shortfall of $54,321.39. And this shortfall can be funded from a surplus in the sanitary sewer rehabilitation project, which has yet to be allocated this year. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Abdallah.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to motion that we accept the recommendation of Mr. Lewis to award the contract to the JWK Utilities and Site Services Limited, plus the additional expenditures.
Councillor Frenier. Okay. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, call to question then. Those in favor? Approved. Next up is the Downtown Street Lighting 2020 Street Light Replacement. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Operations Department recommends the following. Committee approve award for the Downtown Street Lighting 2020 Street Light Replacement to Westburn in the amount of $104,244.28. So this project is a continuation of the street light replacements that were completed on Pembroke Street West in the downtown core, as well as on the previous reconstruction projects, Pembroke Street Bridge, the Lake Street Bridge rehabilitation, Alexander Street, Agnes Street, and the Victoria Street reconstruction. As the city has standardized a specific light assembly for the downtown core area, pricing for this project was single sourced. This is a supply-only contract with the installation of the assemblies to be completed by ORPC and ORES, as was the previous phase of this project that was done downtown. Supply is by the distributor WSA Light Engineering Design Limited, with purchase being through the local electrical wholesaler Westburn. Total of 12 streetlight assemblies will be installed as part of this particular project for the 2020 replacement, and it includes hanging basket brackets, banner arms that are typically used by the PBIA. 2 additional assemblies are being installed as part of the 2020 replacement project. They are due to vehicle incidents that have happened in the last year in the downtown core. Purchase cost of the materials is included in the award for this particular contract, but will be reimbursed to the city under insurance claims through the vehicle owners. In the 2020 budget, $134,451 was allocated for the LED street lighting phase 3 of 4. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move that we approve award of the downtown street lighting, 2020 streetlight replacement to Westburn in the amount of $104,244.28 plus HST.
Councillor Abdallah.
Second Councillor Reeves' motion.
Any further questions, comments? Seeing none. Those in favor? Approved. Next up, aerial fire truck fire service agreement with Township of Laurentian Valley. Mr. Herbach, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's been a long time. I zoomed in at the last meeting, and I was asked by council to prepare a report in regards to our agreement with Laurentian Valley for our aerial fire truck and the services agreement that goes with it. I've provided this report for informational purposes only. It's not a recommendation in any way. The background is that currently the City of Pembroke has an agreement which provides assistance to Laurentian Valley Fire Department with an aerial ladder truck and staff when required. Now, I would like to correct myself from the previous meeting in that I had mentioned that I thought this was only an agreement without a bylaw, but there is a bylaw with this agreement. The bylaw speaks in two different directions about the aerial ladder truck as well as the tanker truck from Laurentian Valley. So there was an original agreement to provide this equipment, and the service has been in place since 1995. It was updated again in 2009 in conjunction with an agreement for the Laurentian Valley to provide a tanker to the City of Pembroke when required. Both of these agreements do not provide for any exchange of money at any time. The payment for use of the equipment and staff and were made outside of the mutual aid plan for the fire services in Renfrew County. City of Pembroke provides heavy extrication and water rescue services to the township. Also, these are also through agreements and through bylaw. These agreements provide for an annual administration fee and payment for the service when the service is being provided. These agreements increased in costs annually by the CPI. That is built into the bylaw, built into the agreement. If council chose to end this current agreement for the aerial apparatus, they would be required to give notice to Laurentian Valley of at least 3 months. The options available are do nothing, continue to work under the current agreement, which does not provide any type of cost recovery to the city when our equipment and services are provided to Laurentian Valley. Second option would be to end the current agreement with Laurentian Valley and renegotiate a new agreement, which would better reflect and recover costs to the City of Pembroke associated with providing these services and equipment. And number 3 option would be to end the current agreement and no longer provide the services to Laurentian Valley. Financial implications and financial thoughts are the cost to replace the aerial truck is $1.6 million now. That aerial truck was purchased in 2013 for a cost of $980,000. That's how much it went up since 2013. Of course, the aerial truck was purchased in 2013 when our dollar was par with the US. So that made a big, big difference at that time. Fire trucks are expected to go up 3% per year, and you're looking at the 30 to 35% on the American dollar on top of that. Annual maintenance budget and fuel costs for our aerial fire truck are $6,000. The maintenance costs include the required testing of not only of the aerial ladder, but of the pump that's on board with this truck. Those are annual tests that must be done. Annual replacement cost budget, which we put into reserve every year for replacement of this truck, is $76,000. Minimum staffing costs per hour for any incident that we attend is $570. Now that's minimum. If we attend out of town, we send our staff, and we have to backfill our station in town with other staff. That's where the costs come in. That's my report in regards to how it works and where we are with it.
Deputy Mayor, first up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chief, for the report. As I said at the last meeting, I never would want to see someone else stuck, if I can put it that way. So if someone is in Laurentian Valley, there's a fire, there's a fiberboard plant or where have you, I would never want to see someone stuck. So I want to make sure that that's perfectly clear. But having said that, I think it's incumbent upon us, we are the ones managing the purse strings to the residents of the city of Pembroke. I think it's incumbent upon us to ensure that we're paying our fair share if we have to pay, for instance, the tanker truck. But similarly, that anyone utilizing our equipment and our folks, because our folks, I was going to say guys, which would be totally inappropriate at this point, but our folks have to man the equipment because we don't just hand it over to other individuals. We man it as we utilize it in another municipality. I think kudos to the council of the day whenever they were looking at the extrication and other instances where let's look at it from a dollar and cents point of view, and so let's all pay our fair share. I think I compared it last time to if I have a hoe and Councilor Reevy has a tiller, do we just exchange things? I don't know that that's necessarily proper in terms of the municipality. I think one might be worth more than the other, maybe one's being used more than the other. I think it just makes perfect sense to use, pay for what you use, and if you don't use it, well then you don't pay, but it's not this business of, well, I might need your tanker truck, well, but you're using our aerial truck, and at these astonishing amounts to replace it. And I recognize that the chief does a beautiful job. He's got a reserve, and he constantly replenishes the reserve to ensure that there's appropriate funds to replace the equipment. I get that, but all I'm saying is different municipalities need to pay their fair share, and that may be us if we, for whatever reason, had a series of fires on presumably Mud Lake Road, and we needed the tanker truck ad nauseum. Fine, okay. But if the Township of Laurentian Valley is utilizing our aerial truck, our equipment, then I think that there should be an appropriate agreement in place to ensure that the ratepayers of the city of Pembroke are not footing the bill for another municipality. And I kudos to this council for taking on, underneath the mayor's leadership, taking each individual agreement with corresponding municipalities saying, are you paying your fair share? Let's negotiate this one. Let's negotiate that one. Well, this is another one. I've said it for some time now, and I'm glad to see that it's come forward. And I'm not trying to hamper discussions, but I'm putting a motion on the floor that we proceed with option number 2, which is to give notice and renegotiate an agreement with Laurentian Valley.
I have Councilor Reevy had her hand up first, if you want to go. And then I have Abdallah and then the Fernet after.
That was just a second.
Oh, okay. All right, so Councilor Abdallah, comments? Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Plummer. Just a quick question for the chief. How many calls have we been gotten on average the last few years for the aerial truck from Laurentian Valley?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would say that the aerial truck in the last 5 years was called on approximately 6 or 7 times.
Supplementary to the chair. So if we vote to renegotiate and go with option 2, that would include who knows what, like the tank, they would want a cost for their tanker truck to be, maybe charge us a fee also. But I do agree that it should be cost recovery for such an expensive item. And no one, as Deputy Mayor says, we're going to go to the call, but we have to look out for our taxpayers also. So the other question is, what's a tanker truck cost?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's $250,000 to $300,000 for a new tanker truck. The other thing that goes with this is that, and again, I'm not recommending one way or the other, but we've used their tanker truck in my over 30 years with the fire department now once. Are we going to purchase a truck that has only got a 25-year lifespan to use once? We have to make sure that we have something in place for the boundary road and the non-hydranted areas, as well as times when hydrants aren't providing quite enough water for us. That's only been once in over 30 years so I don't see that, of course, I'm not making that decision, but I wouldn't make a recommendation that we even look towards purchasing a tanker truck at this time for once every 30 years.
Okay, so I support the motion.
Okay, Councillor Fenny?
I also support the motion. I'm not suggesting we buy a tanker. I think we can work a partnership out with this, but I mean, like you say, it's comparing apples to oranges when you're talking about what you're exchanging. When you look at this, I mean, the breakdown, $210 a day it costs the city just for the maintenance and putting money away. For the next new one, $570 an hour to staff it. So we're talking a minimum probably of $1,000 every time that aerial truck goes out. So I look forward to an agreement. I would rather, I mean, it will be something that will have to be built, obviously, but I would rather see an annual fee for their use, rather than just, $210 a day, so much an hour, because we have that expense. We just went through our audited financial statement. We see that we've partnered with municipalities before when they had large expenses that we needed to use, like the waste recovery. I mean, we took a long-term debenture out with them years ago because it was something we needed too. We didn't just say, bill us when we use it. But once, whenever we have something to bring out to the dump, we'll pay you. So I look forward to seeing what comes of this, and I'm sure that, we can work out something with their tanker truck as well when we need it. Thank you.
Councillor Giacono?
Thank you, Councillor Plummer. Chief, I think really it's crucial to review things every so many years. I think we've been good neighbors to each other. We've supported each other in the past, whether it was through, as Councillor Fournier said, waste management. I know that Laurentian Valley takes great pride, and they post their sign that they're now 10,000 people. Their growth continues, which is a good thing. And I mean, people come here and shop, et cetera, but there's got to be a point when you say, well, what's logical, what's liable, and what's financially good for both parties. We certainly, I know we wouldn't let somebody in a lurch, as you said earlier, but it boils down to financial capabilities. And as our auditor said tonight, we're in good shape, but we're not in good shape because we gave the farm away. Mayor LeMay, you've been a good leader, keeping the funds intact, which is a good thing. Previous councils as well. So I think we should review that agreement and come up with some sort of a new, financial fiscality that'll be good for us, and hopefully provide them with the protection they need if they want it. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to go with option 2. Call a question. Those in favor? Approved. So thank you, Chief. I'll look forward to you drawing something up and for that one. Next up is the fireworks bylaw. Chief.
Okay. Fireworks bylaw is hoping to update a bylaw which was written in 1973. The existing bylaw has been in place since 73, and it no longer reflects the reality of today. Our fireworks are a lot more readily accessible all year, and the fire department, OPP, and bylaw officers have experienced problems with residents displaying fireworks at times which are not allowed within the bylaw, and doing so in a dangerous manner, even causing fires and physical damage to property. We had 2 separate fires this year that were caused by fireworks being done improperly and in an unsafe manner. The existing bylaw also does not provide for sufficient fines or penalties to deter this practice. This new bylaw provides for sufficient penalties and fines. The old bylaw is fines between $10 and $50 is all it was. Based on direction received, staff will submit the approved draft bylaw to the Provincial Crown's Office for confirmation of the set fines. And once this is complete, the bylaw will be provided to Council for a formal adoption.
Comments? Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to thank the chief because one thing that bothers me the most in the city are looking at the bylaws that are still in existence. And I couldn't believe when I saw it in 1975. Like, that's a bit much. So I think what you've done here is tremendous because we have to be up to date. Otherwise, you know, we're not serving the residents properly. So thanks for getting this updated.
Thanks. Councilor Frenier?
Just a comment off the cuff. I had a conversation with a group of friends this summer, and I'm really surprised that fireworks are even allowed in the world today. It's just really, to me, it just goes against everything that people are preaching about, you know, clean air and inhaling smoke, and with all the changes in the weather, the dry weather we've been having, they can trigger fires. And I mean, yeah, they're pretty, but that's just a personal statement. I wanted to say that I'm really surprised they still exist. It's big money, and I mean, it's, I don't know. I just, that's just my opinion. And if you were to say I don't want them at all in the city, and they scare the dogs away. That's all I can say. They really do. Thanks.
Councilor Reevy?
Thanks, Chief. I was really happy to see this come along because there are times when I believe I live in a war zone, firecrackers particularly. And not a dog, but my very large cat who is tied outside has hightailed her in on several occasions, made me chuckle a bit. But at the same time, it wasn't funny. So thank you.
And if I can just add, through you, Mr. Chair, some of the older things that were in there, we talked about the chief of police and having to go to the chief of police and different things like that. So there was a lot of outdatedness to that bylaw, and hopefully that draft, when it comes back, it's going to be acceptable.
Okay. I'll just speak from the chair. I just have one point that I just take a little bit issue with is 3.4 in the bylaw. It says no person shall display, offer for sale, or sell fireworks within the city of Pembroke except for designated days of Victoria Street, Canada Day, and the period 6 business days immediately preceding Victoria Day. So if this does come forward and is exactly how it is, I'll be voting no, because I don't think we should regulate what, you know, a legal item that can be for sale or someone's going to sell. You may be buying these and going out of town. I do understand you don't want to have them, you know, let them off in town and only on certain days, but I don't think we should be regulating what can be sold in people's stores if they're a legal item. Just make my note.
Understood.
Councilor Abdallah?
I just have a question for the chief through the chair. I'm looking at the fines here, and they're very good fines, excellent. Is there something here for repeat offenders? Was that something you could add or think about adding? Because I think it would be worthwhile to consider.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's not something that I've seen in any other bylaws because repeat offenders is fined again. I don't know. It's not my area of expertise. I went with what I saw in other bylaws. Mm-hmm.
Okay, seeing no question. Oh, yes, Mr. Lapierre.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So based on your comments, does the committee want to strike 3.4? It's your privilege to do so. We'll do so if you wish.
Councilor Frenier?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. I was just sitting here thinking about that. And I mean, sometimes they have Christmas decorations out in September. So, yeah, I think that if someone wants to sell them, I think they need more than 30 days. Sometimes they stock their shelves earlier. I mean, I would be prepared to say 90 days because I think if they stock them 3 months, I think the thing is you don't want them for sale all year if they're not legal to put off. So, but I would be in favor of looking at that.
I started a storm here, so I got Councilor Reevy first, and I got Councilor Giacono after.
I have to agree with you, Councillor Plummer, on that point. I mean, who are we to say what can or what can't be sold in our businesses, local businesses?
Councilor Giacono?
Councillor Plummer, I agree with you. I don't think we should regulate what people can, you know, purchase at the wholesale level and sell so they can make a living. It's like buying a can of beans and you put it in your pantry. Doesn't mean you use it right away. You could use it in 3 months from now. It would be the onus on the individual that's buying the thing to follow the law. So it shouldn't be the store owner who's regulating the individual, telling him you shouldn't put those out till July 1st. It's up to the individual who's buying them. And if he doesn't do that, then the law comes into play. can of beans, right? Thank you.
Councillor Abdallah?
I agree. You shouldn't dictate to the market what they can sell within reason. So I think it should be struck.
Okay, anyone other comments? Then? Okay, so I'd put a motion that we strike 3.4 from the bylaw, or proposed bylaw. Councillor Abdallah, you second that? Those in question for that portion? Approved on that one, so thank you for agreeing. We're on to letter H, establish and regulate Pembroke Fire Department bylaw.
The establishing and regulating bylaw for the Pembroke Fire Department. Staff recommends the council updates the Pembroke Fire Department establishing and regulating bylaw to ensure that it accurately reflects the services being provided by the fire department. The background on this is that the bylaw was established in 1991 and in 2000 and updated in 2003. Since that date, some of the services being provided have changed, and this should be reflected in the new bylaw. The new bylaw, the only changes to it are slight changes to the services being provided. One of them being the fact that we have a boat now, and we are able to enter the water and do water rescue in the water. Previous one did not. We had shore-based rescue only. So the OFM continues to stress that our bylaws need to say what we actually do, so that we're not going outside of our bylaw and doing services that doesn't even say in our bylaws that we provide. So essentially, the changes are minimal in that way, and slight changes to fix up what wasn't in the previous bylaw.
Any questions, Councillor Giacono?
Through you to Jean, Mr. Chair. This seems to be becoming a common occurrence that we're way behind, as the mayor said, in some of the bylaws, some going back to 1973. I'm sure there's some that go back further. Do we have a policy for review? I know we probably have a lot of bylaws, Mr. Chair. How many of those bylaws would we be looking at and reviewing?
Well, we review them as we go forward. There's, I don't know the number of bylaws, but there's lots and lots. But we have been actively doing it as we get time and as we come across them. We have been. I just wrote a note here to determine how many we have updated in the last 3 years, but continue to update them. Some of them, they may never need to change, but vast majority of them do need to change. So we are continually doing that.
Thank you.
Any questions to the chief on that item? Nope. Okay. Next one then. Bylaw to participate in Renfrew County Mutual Aid Plan.
Right. The staff recommends the council adopt a bylaw to approve the Pembroke Fire Department to be a participant in the Renfrew County Mutual Aid Plan. The background on this is that the Pembroke Fire Department has always participated in the Renfrew County Mutual Aid Plan as an active participant, and the Pembroke Fire Chief has always been the coordinator of this mutual aid program. Although our establishing and regulating bylaw, which we just spoke about, refers to the department leaving the city for mutual aid, it does not clearly approve participation in the mutual aid program. The Ontario Fire Marshal is recommending that all municipalities adopt a bylaw authorizing fire department to participate in the area's mutual aid plan. This new bylaw clearly states that council approves of the Pembroke Fire Department's participation in the Renfrew County Mutual Aid Plan, and it satisfies the recommendation of the Ontario Fire Marshal's Office. There are no financial implications to this.
Okay, we will need a motion for this, though. Councillor Abdallah? Second by Councillor Reevy. Okay, those questions, all in favor? Approved. Last item of the night, Pembroke Fire Department monthly report.
One more time. Prior to starting my monthly report, I'd like to, this is Fire Prevention Week, and it's a little different in a different way, and I know it's hard for a lot of people to not see us doing some of the things that we normally do, especially here in the city, because we've been very busy every Fire Prevention Week. But things change, and we're trying to change with them and follow the things that we need to do. So it runs from October 4th to the 10th, and the theme this year is Serve Up Fire Safety in the Kitchen. And it's especially important during this time when so many people are spending more and more time at home, working from home, and taking care of their families, and more cooking at home for their families. It's a great reminder that even if we are busy with work or other family duties, when we're cooking, it requires our full attention, and to ensure it is done safely so we can prevent injuries and fire. Fire Prevention Week usually provides us with many excellent opportunities to meet and greet the public face to face. And this year has made this far too challenging, especially with the second wave coming. It's hard to promote or carry out many of our normal weekly functions that we do during Fire Prevention Week. Although the Pembroke Fire Department will not be hosting our traditional Fire Prevention Week events due to the ongoing pandemic, the need to ensure we are not promoting unnecessary gatherings. We're promoting fire safety through the city's social media, and the Pembroke firefighters are also grabbing onto it, putting it through their own social media platforms. We're working closely with the city businesses, with the schools, with the daycares, and with the seniors' homes to ensure they are following and promoting fire safety guidelines. I'll talk more about what we're doing in the monthly report in regards to that. Fire prevention is not only a week long, but it's a year-round endeavor. And with a full-time fire department that you have, we take this very seriously, and we do a lot of fire prevention all year long, and you see it in our monthly reports. Fire Prevention Week just gives us a chance to have a little extra meet and greet and really put it to people. We promote fire prevention each and every day, and we encourage all of the Pembroke residents to contact the fire department at any time if they have any questions or to discuss fire safety with us. So that's essentially what we are doing this week. I'll have some more in the monthly report. Okay. Our monthly report for September, August 26th till September 30th. Prevention and public education activities. There was an internal fire drill were being held at Supples Landing, Pembroke Regional Hospital, Cathedral School, Holy Name School, the PMC, PEMICE 2, Riverview Heights, Carrefour Civic Complex, and KI Pembroke. Annual inspections that were scheduled at the schools and daycares have been postponed due to the second wave of COVID. We had them all scheduled. We did start some of them. Each of these occupancies have been provided through their health and safety officers for the school boards with self-inspection templates to ensure that all the areas of the buildings remain fire safe and proper maintenance and record keeping is continued, and documentation will be provided to the fire department. This being documentation we speak of is would be for sprinkler systems, for fire alarm systems that they have been tested, that they have been updated, and all this documentation that we always require each year is still going to be provided to us that they have done this work. But the template goes much further than that and discusses what the maintenance people have to check and ensure that they come back to us that they've had a chance to check that. The inspections which have already been initiated are being completed with follow-up inspections while following the safety requirements of the school boards. All the schools and daycares were given a template for fire drills. It will ensure they maintain distances and ensure they are not promoting large group gatherings. Drills will be completed in-house only without the fire department attending. The drills are still mandatory through the fire code, so they still have to do these. It's not a requirement that we are there, and they're doing them in a different way. It's the best way that I can describe it is they will set off the alarm for a short burst to ensure that everybody knows what it sounds like, and then they're going to exit the school classroom by classroom one at a time. And when one class finishes their exit, the next class will go by the teacher ringing a bell. This is something that the OFM put forward, asked that they go forward and do it this way, ensuring that they don't have large gatherings during their fire drills. We did fire safety inspections at city restaurants, the Pembroke Mall businesses, and at many industries. The EOC meeting room was used by the City of Pembroke's bylaw department for a meeting. We are We are finding that the EOC room and the meeting and training room at the Pembroke Fire Department is large enough to keep distances and to have meetings for up to a certain amount of people. So when they can't seem to find enough space, including this room, we're able to use that room. So it works out well. In our vulnerable occupancy inspections and drills, there were no vulnerable occupancy fire drills or inspections during the month. Our officers are all now working within the Fire College's online courses. Of course, the college is still closed to attendance. Our firefighters donated to the Ottawa Heart Institute. This was in memory of our former fire chief's father. Rayom Chapu's father passed away late August. Chief Chapu is in town and has been in town since then for all of the arrangements and for the funeral for his father. A donation was also made to the Ride for Refuge in support of the Grind Transition House. Career firefighter training. During September, our members trained on firefighter self-rescue, policies and procedures, forcible entry and fire tactics, driver training and aerial deployment, air compressor operations, ropes and knots, personal protective equipment. Our volunteer training on the month focused on operating, deploying ground ladders, structural search for victim removal, and firefighter survival. All of our full-time and volunteer firefighters completed required fit testing of their personal SCBA face masks. This is expected every 2 years. Their masks are fitted, done by a contractor that comes into the house and tests all their masks, that they fit properly and that there won't be any problems with smoke entering in a smoke-filled environment. In our inspections and consultations during the month, I'd like to note how many there are, 141 during the month, inspections and consultations. Of note of that is a lot of the consultations are done by telephone. This being whether they're doing an alarm or a fire drill or anything at one of the schools or one of the occupancies, consultation is calling us, letting us know that they are doing the drill. We record that they're doing the drill. We record that they're done the drill. We also give them advice and assistance over the phone, letting them know that make sure you call your monitoring agency. We don't want a false alarm. We do this, we do that. So it's a lot of consultation for that. And you can see that there's a lot of inspections. Again, we are working our way through the restaurants. And again, it's trying to do it as best as we can with all the requirements of the safety of their staff and of our staff. We did find violations. We found 44 during the month, and we found 19 that had been repaired from our previous inspections. We reviewed and approved 4 fire safety plans. Our incidents during the month, you'll see that we had a total of 34 incidents. We had only one fire. That fire was downtown in a business, and the estimated dollar loss for that fire was $4,000. It was a totally accidental fire, just from some of the operations of the work that they do within that building. There's a small soldering torch that caught fire onto an oxygen line as well as onto a wall. Minimal damage, and we were able to clear the smoke out, and they were opened again very quickly. Our false alarms during the month of September, we gave out 4 letters of warning. We issued 1 fine, no fines paid, no fines canceled, and we have 1 fine outstanding.
Questions of the chief? Seeing none. Thank you very much for your report.
Thank you.
And motion to adjourn. Moved by Councilor Reevy, second by Councilor Abdallah. Those in favor? Adjourned from this committee meeting.
Call this meeting of the Planning and Development Committee to order for Tuesday, October 6th, 2020. Do I have any disclosures of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. 6B, sale of portion of Victoria Street. I'll be declaring as our office is involved in that matter.
So noted, thank you. Item 3, I need approval amendment of the meeting agenda. Councillor Lafreniere, Councillor Abdallah, all in favor? That's carried. Approval of the minutes of this committee for September 1st, 2020. Councillor Jacno, Councillor Plummer, all those in favor, and that is carried as well. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Nothing? On to new business, item A, CIP requests for a COVID-19 business support grant, and we'll ask Heather Salaver to join us virtually.
Hi. So I have the CIP request for the COVID-19 business support grant report. The recommendation this evening is that a total of $8,637.66 is granted between 6 community improvement plan applications for the business support grant. The applicants and the dollar amounts recommended are as follows. For Choices Plus, located at 1100 Pembroke Street East, $630. Crazy Beautiful Dresses at 76 Pembroke Street West, $2,350. Dr. James Gallant at 186 Pembroke Street West, $2,098.63. Adventure Entertainment at 401 Isabella Street for $2,500. Ottawa Valley Power Play at 213 Pembroke Street West for $743.35, and the Urban Gourmet at 143 Pembroke Street West for $315.68. On September 23rd, the Community Improvement Panel met and all members were present. The panel reviewed 7 grant applications for the COVID-19 Business Support Grant. One of the applications did not meet the eligible criteria under the grant, and the panel recommended that 6 applications be approved under the Community Improvement Plan. And the work for these applications are as follows. So for the first one, Choices Plus, it's located in the Pembroke Mall, and the applicant has installed plexiglass, which is a renovation cost related to COVID-19. Number 2 is an application from Crazy Beautiful Dresses, which installed 10 doors to retrofit their change rooms, which previously had curtains. So it was a requirement under COVID to switch to doors for sanitary purposes, and they installed plexiglass at their checkout counter. Number 3 was an application from Dr. James Gallant Dentistry, and they installed plexiglass at their front counter and in their exam rooms and put up COVID-19 directional signage for patients to follow to stay at safe distances. Number 4 is an application that came from Rick Wharton on behalf of Adventure Entertainment representing Festival Hall. And the application is for plans to install plexiglass barriers and directional signage to keep patrons safe during COVID-19. Number 5 is an application from Ottawa Valley Power Play, and they plan to purchase COVID-19 signage, and they're reorienting their business to allow for physical distancing, moving things around to make their gaming spaces larger so people can stay further away from each other, and moving their reception counter to the front of their business. Number 5 is an application from the Urban Gourmet, who is planning to purchase COVID-19 directional signage and a sneeze guard cashier barrier. So the COVID-19 Business Support Grant is intended to provide financial assistance to aid businesses in adapting to COVID-19 environment and adherence to public health and safety requirements. Eligible costs can include renovation, construction, and signage costs as they relate to new health and safety requirements due to COVID-19. Under the community improvement plan, there can be no outstanding orders or taxes against the applying properties. So the Treasury Department, Building Department, and Fire Department have no issues with regards to any of the properties that applied. I will note that we are accepting applications for the second round of this grant. So any business that is in the city of Pembroke can apply for COVID-19 related renovation, construction, or signage costs. And the second round of applications is open until October 20th. So in terms of financial implications, this grant can be up to $2,500 for 50% of eligible costs. So the breakdown would go as follows for each of the 6 recommended recipients. Choices Plus provided receipts that they spent $1,260, so they would be eligible for $630. Crazy Beautiful Dresses provided a receipt for $4,700, so they would be eligible for $2,350. Dr. James Gallant provided receipts for $4,197.26, so they are eligible for $2,098.63. The next 3 applications haven't done the work yet, but they're planning on it. So they submitted quotes or estimates for their work. So Adventure Entertainment estimates their eligible expenses to total $6,000. So they will be eligible for the full $2,500 with receipts. Ottawa Valley Power Play estimates $1,486.67. So they would be eligible for $743.35. And the Urban Gourmet estimates they will spend $631.37, which means they're eligible for $315.68. There is $50,000 budgeted for this specific grant category under the Community Improvement Plan. So based on the recommendations, up to $8,637.66 will be committed to applicants this evening, which leaves over $41,000 for future applicants. So that would include those being reviewed at the October 20th Community Improvement Panel meeting and those going forward.
Thank you, Heather, for your report. It's really great to see such an uptake with this newest, I guess, category under our community improvement plan. So, Mayor LeMay.
Then I'd like to move that a total of $8,637.66 be granted between 6 community improvement plan applicants for the COVID-19 business support grant as listed below.
Councillor Abdallah,
I'll second that motion.
further questions? No, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, welcome, Colleen. Item B, sale of a portion of Victoria Street south of Renfrew Street.
As per the construction plans for Victoria Street, the city has stopped up and closed a portion of Victoria Street south of Renfrew Street for the purposes of parkland, as well as a potential sale of a portion of this land to the abutting landowners at 48 Renfrew Street. Bylaw was passed on September 1st, which officially stops up and closes this portion of Victoria Street. Council agreed in principle to the purchase and transfer of a section of Victoria Street to the property owners at 48 Renfrew Street. A public notice of the proposed sale of land has been on the city's website since June 17th. The Operations Department has reviewed this request and has no concerns with the transfer of land on this portion of the closed section of Victoria Street. There is a water and sewer main along this section of the closed road, but the removal of common law passage will not have any impact on the ability to maintain this infrastructure. Further, a registered easement will be drawn up for this portion of the land. An agreement, which is a part of tonight's bylaw, will accompany the bylaw indicating that conditions of the purchase of 48 Renfrew Street would be such that the purchasers would be responsible for all survey and legal costs. A fence must be erected by November 30th, and the city retains the right to access over this part that we're selling for the existing infrastructure. If future repair works are required, portions of the fence would have to be temporarily removed to accommodate this work. Costs for the removal and or reinstatement of the fence would be shared by the purchaser and the city. The land is being sold to the purchasers for $1, but the purchasers are responsible for the cost of the survey, which is $1,500 plus HST, along with the city solicitor costs. If the fence is to be removed for underground repair works, the cost will be shared by the purchaser and the city. So a bylaw is before council this evening.
I have a question through the chair for Ms. Soriel. A point of interest, right now there's construction barricade there. Is your department or Mr. Lewis's operations department planning to construct some kind of a permanent barricade so somebody doesn't try and drive through there?
That would be through the operations department. I'm really not sure what the barricade is for at this point. Maybe it's just to get people used to not driving through, but that has to be like off of Isabella Street. It would have to remain open because that's where the 48 Renfrew Street people will access that portion, use it as a driveway to get to their parking lot at the back of 48 Renfrew.
Thank you.
Do we require a motion, or are we just with the bylaw at the council meeting is okay?
I would say the bylaw would be sufficient.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments, questions? Thank you. Item C, request for extending outdoor patios. Colleen.
Okay, thanks. At the June 16th Combined Committee of Council meeting, the committee agreed to waiving encroachment agreement fees for outdoor patios due to COVID-19. As well, the committee amended the process to allow the CAO the authority to enter into the encroachment agreements with downtown business owners or tenants. This resulted in a quicker approval time and allowed the outdoor patios to become operational as soon as possible. The city standard encroachment agreement states that outdoor patios shall be permitted from May 1st to October 31st. The PBIA has requested the timeline be extended until December 31st. Upon speaking with the operations department, they have indicated they will have operational issues by allowing outdoor patios until December 31st. The operations department is worried about the freeze-thaw issues that patio heaters could cause on sidewalks, as well as winter control activities such as snow removal would not be as effective with the patios there. Therefore, it's being recommended that the outdoor patios be extended past October 31st during COVID-19, but removed 24 hours after the first snowfall as directed by the operations department. The owners of the outdoor patios were consulted, so that was, and also PBIA was also consulted, and both were in favor of this option. There is no financial implications with this matter and is being recommended that the existing encroachment agreements for outdoor patios during COVID-19 be extended until 24 hours past the first snowfall as directed by the operations department. Your direction is required.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in agreement with the request, but the key, I believe, here is as directed by the operations department. I can only visualize one owner, shop owner disputing whether or not an inch is too much or 2 inches is too much or a foot is too much and so forth. So I'm in favor of what's being requested, and so certainly would move that that it be extended till 24 hours after the first snowfall as directed by the operations department.
Councillor Abdallah.
Second the motion as it's put out, as the recommendation is stated.
Okay. Anything further? All right, we'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. It's carried. Item D, Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act requirements for 2020. Ooh, this is a big one.
On September 4th of this year, the Office of the Fire Marshal and Emergency Management informed municipalities that they were exempt from conducting an emergency exercise in 2020. This amendment takes into consideration the emergency response activities that municipalities and their municipal emergency control groups have engaged in this year as a result of COVID-19. All other requirements of the Emergency Management Civil Protection Act for 2020 must be met. Therefore, we have to still do training. We still have to have emergency management committee meetings. We still have to have a public education plan. We still have to do an annual review. All of those things still have to be done. Training will be virtually this year. A memo, an email was sent out this week with some virtual training that was required. And so that's being done as we speak. It was recommended by the Emergency Management Program Committee that a section should be added to the annexes of the City of Pembroke's emergency plan regarding volunteers. During the 2019 flood, the city did not have a job description for volunteers, and nor did they have a registration form. So one had to be quickly drafted. A draft emergency support volunteer position description is attached to your agenda, as well as a volunteer registration and waiver form. The Emergency Management Committee has endorsed these two items, and it has also been reviewed by the city's insurance company. As stated previously, the city is required to develop a HIRA, a hazard identification and risk assessment, and we have to list all the possible hazards that could occur within the City of Pembroke. So we've done that, and now we have to put them into a new system that Emergency Management Ontario has created. And so I've attached for you the flood format of the new hazard identification and risk assessment as part of the agenda. And so we'll be working on that over the coming year to fill out all the possible hazards that can happen in the city. So this is an information report. However, I do need direction to add the volunteer registration and waiver form, as well as the volunteer position description as an annex in the emergency plan.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Plummer. Thank you. Councillor Jacquinot, second. Anything further? Call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our final item, update of parking bylaw.
Well, speaking of updating bylaws, it's time to update the city's parking bylaw. It was enacted in 2005, and since that time, there's been 46 amendments. Further, this bylaw is not considered an accessible bylaw on the city's website for persons with visibility issues. As of 2021, all content on the city's website must meet the provincial accessibility requirements. Therefore, due to the above issues, a new parking bylaw is being proposed. So here are some of the changes. I've added an electric car parking space and fines. So the Ottawa River Power Corporation is recommending 14 parking spaces for electric car parking. And they would be at the PACC, PMC, behind City Hall. And there would be a fine associated with that. If you weren't charging, if you were a regular car in this electric car parking space, there would be a fine of $125. And that's per the Ontario Highway Traffic Act. Further, the parking lots have been updated as to whether they are a permit parking lot, a paid parking lot, or a free parking lot. The parking metered areas have remained in the bylaw as per the combined committee decision and direction of July 14th. The existing fines and parking permits have not increased. The meter rates have remained the same. I've reviewed and revised the fire routes with the fire chief. We've added a definition for an automated pay station, which is used at the Pembroke Courthouse and at the Pembroke Regional Hospital. We've replaced parking meters with 10-minute parking zones in front of Victoria Hall and 133 Pembroke Street East. We've revised requirements for a property owner to request bylaw enforcement to monitor privately owned lots. We've reviewed and enforced bus loading zones and accessible parking spaces, as well as reviewing the no stopping zones and the loading zones. So if agreement is in principle to this draft bylaw is received this evening, I'm recommending that the bylaw be posted on the city's website for 20 days to obtain public input And then once that public input is obtained, we can come back in November with a bylaw ready for council's debate.
Thank you. Councillor Abdallah?
Thank you, Councillor Reeve. Question for Ms. Soriel. You said you reviewed the accessible parking. Are we getting more accessible parking? We lost one on Victoria Street, if I recall. Is it possible to get more accessible parking downtown?
Through you to the chair, what I've done is I've reviewed all the accessible parking spaces, and if we are to create any new parking spaces, we have to meet the requirements under the OADA. So that means then there has to be aisle widths, and our streets at this point, like especially along Victoria, don't account for the additional width that an accessible parking space would have to be. So there are some in the parking lots, but to create a new one on the street requires a lot more space than our street widths can handle.
Thank you.
Okay, anything further? So we're looking for a motion as per the recommendation. Councillor Lafreniere? Yeah.
Accept the recommendations as presented.
Thank you. Councillor Abdallah, seconded. All in favor? Thank you, carried. And I'd ask for an adjournment. Councillor Abdallah, Councillor Plummer, all in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you.
I'd like to call this council meeting of Tuesday, October the 6th, 2020 to order. I'd ask council to please bow their heads. Before opening this meeting of council, I would ask those who wish, each in your own way, each in your own words, silently join in a prayer of guidance over these proceedings. Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Deputy Mayor?
Your Worship, 7A having to deal with the sale of the portion of Victoria Street.
Thank you. Our minutes, approve the minutes from our council meeting, which was held on September the 15th, 2020. Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by Councillor Reeve. All those in favor? Carried. Adopt the minutes of our Finance and Administration Committee meeting, which was held on September the 1st, 2020. Moved by Councillor Giacono, seconded by Councillor Lafreniere. All those in favor? Carried. The Planning and Development Committee meeting, which was held on September the 1st, 2020. Moved by Councillor Reeve, seconded by Councillor Abdallah. All those in favor? Carried. Receiving the minutes from the committees, the PBIA, the January the 14th, 2020, February the 11th, 2020, March 20th, 2020, April 14th, 2020, May 12th, 2020, June 9th, 2020, July 7th, 2020, August 11th, 2020, and the Festival Hall Committee Minutes of December the 19th, 2019. Moved by Councillor Reevy, seconded by Councillor Abdallah. All those in favor? Carried. Staff committee report in regards to tender 21. Councillor Jacquinot.
Your Worship, members of council, the Finance Administration Committee makes a report and recommend from this meeting held this evening as follows. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Plummer, that tender contract number 21-1239. Sorry, I didn't have the mic on. That tender contract number 21-1239 for the replacement of traffic control signals and pedestrian crossing devices along the Highway 41, Highway 148 connecting link be awarded to Bonashare Excavating Incorporated in the amount of $1,684,904.50 plus HST, and that the Operations Department be authorized additional expenditures in the amount of $84,245 for a contingency allowance. The total value of the recommendations equaling $1,769,149.50 plus applicable taxes, and awaiting your signature, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Jacquinot, seconded by Councillor Plummer, that tender contract number 21-1239 for the replacement of traffic control signals and pedestrian crossing devices along the 41-148 connecting link be awarded to Bonashare Excavating, Inc. in the amount of $1,684,904.50 plus HST. That the Operations Department be authorized additional expenditures in the amount of $84,245 for a contingency allowance. The total value of the recommendations equal $1,769,149.50 plus applicable HST.
Thank you, Your Worship. This was discussed earlier at the Operations Department. As council is aware in the public, there were two tender applicants. The one that was accepted fell within the parameters of our procurement policy and followed the legislation as put out by the corporation. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. By virtue of the power vested in me, I do hereby declare October the 4th to the 10th, 2020, as Fire Prevention Week in the City of Pembroke. Whereas the City of Pembroke is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all living in and visiting the city, and whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at the greatest risk from fire, and whereas the 2020 Fire Prevention Week theme is Serve Up Fire Safety in the Kitchen, as cooking is one of the leading causes of home fires and fatal home fires in Ontario, and as such, Pembroke residents should always remember to cook safely and attentively. And whereas Pembroke's residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Michael LeMay, Mayor of the City of Pembroke, do hereby proclaim October the 4th to the 10th, 2020 as Fire Prevention Week, and I urge all city residents to check their kitchens for fire hazards, use safe cooking practices, check their smoke alarms, and support the many safety activities and efforts of the city's fire department. Dated in the Mayor's office is 6th day of October 2020. And we're fortunate enough to have the Fire Chief's report earlier this evening, which talked about these items. Bylaw 2020-69, Councillor Lafreniere.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Andrew Plummer, that bylaw 2020-69, a bylaw to authorize the proposed sale of lands to Thomas Kobalecki and Dean Gerard Campbell be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Moved by Councillor Lafreniere, seconded by Councillor Plummer, that bylaw 2020-69, a bylaw to authorize the proposed sale of lands to Thomas Kobalecki and Dean Gerard Campbell be adopted and passed, and further, the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of corporation.
This was discussed at the previous meeting, and it's going to go ahead.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Okay, carried. Bylaw 2020-71, Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Jacquino, that bylaw 2020-71, a bylaw to establish and regulate a fire department in the city of Pembroke be adopted and passed. And further, that said bylaw be signed by the mayor or clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by Councillor Jacquino, that bylaw 2020-71, a bylaw to establish and regulate a fire department in the city of Pembroke be adopted and passed. And further, that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. All those in favor? Carried. Bylaw 2020-72, Councillor Abdallah.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Christine Reevy, that bylaw 220-72, a bylaw to provide for the participation of the City of Pembroke Fire Department in the Renfrew County Mutual Aid Plan be adopted and passed. And further, that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Moved by Councillor Abdallah, seconded by Councillor Reevy, that bylaw 2020-72, a bylaw to provide for the participation of the City of Pembroke Fire Department in the Renfrew County Mutual Aid Plan be adopted and passed. And further, that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed to seal of the corporation. All those in favor? Okay, carried. Bylaw 2020-73, Councillor Reevy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Abdallah, that bylaw 2020-73, a bylaw to authorize the amendment of zoning bylaw 2020-05 regarding 382 3rd Avenue be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Moved by Councillor Reevy, seconded by Councillor Abdallah, that bylaw 2020-73, a bylaw to authorize the amendment of zoning bylaw 2020-05 regarding 382 3rd Avenue be adopted and passed. And further, that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
This was discussed during the public meeting earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor? Okay, carried. Resolution 2020-18, Councillor Reevy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Abdallah. Be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Pembroke approve the following applications under the Community Improvement Plan's COVID-19 Business Support Grant. Choice Plus at 1100 Pembroke Street East for $630. Crazy Beautiful Dresses at 76 Pembroke Street West for $2,350. Dr. James Gallant at 186 Pembroke Street West for $2,098.63. Eventure Entertainment at 401 Isabella Street for $2,500. Ottawa Valley Power Play at 213 Pembroke Street West for $743.35. The Urban Gourmet Company at 143 Pembroke Street West for $315.68. The applicants must comply with grant guidelines and will have the lesser of 18 months or until the COVID-19 Business Support Grant is discontinued to complete all work and submit receipts in order to receive the grant. The total commitment to grant recipients is $8,637.66.
Moved by Councillor Reevy, seconded by Councillor Abdallah. Be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Pembroke approve the following applications under the Community Improvement Plan's COVID-19 Business Support Grant. Number 1, Choice Plus at 1100 Pembroke Street East for $630. Crazy Beautiful Dresses at 76 Pembroke Street West for $2,350. Dr. James Gallant at 186 Pembroke Street West for $2,098.63. Eventure Entertainment at 401 Isabella Street for $2,500. The Ottawa Valley Power Play at 2013 Pembroke Street West for $743.35. The Urban Gourmet at 143 Pembroke Street West for $315.68. The applicants must comply with grant guidelines and will have the lesser of 18 months or until the COVID-19 Business Support Grant is discontinued to complete all work and submit receipts in order to receive the grant. The total commitment to grant recipients is $8,637.66. All those in favor? Okay, carried. Mayor's report. I'd like to comment on what is presently happening to Coach Gonyor TV, and normally I wouldn't do this. There's an unsolicited bid for Cogeco by a large U.S. company, Altus and Rogers. This is a hostile bid for a Canadian-owned company that's serving our community. Cogeco has made it quite clear that it is not for sale. Pembroke has had a good relationship with your TV. They have carried our committee and council meetings for several years and continue to do so. Cogeco invests significantly in Pembroke and the communities it serves. They provide high quality and local employment and are a huge supporter for community events in the city and also the county. Now, competition is necessary in the internet, cable TV, and telephone services in our community. Cogeco, being an independent Canadian company, is a strong player in providing choice. As the telecommunications sector evolves, it would be a real shame if this hostile bid were successful. Now that the second wave of COVID-19 has begun, it is more important than ever to follow public health guidelines, wear a mask, wash your hands frequently, and maintain physically distancing in public places. As we have witnessed over the course of the last few days, the threat of COVID-19 is very real, and no one is immune from contracting the coronavirus. In many regions of Ontario, we are seeing surges in the number of COVID-19 cases, and as a result, the Government of Ontario is implementing new guidelines to follow. Now, these include staying home when ill, or keeping your child home from school when ill, practicing physically distancing with those outside your household, wearing a face covering when physical distancing is a challenge or where it is mandatory to do so, washing your hands frequently and thoroughly, and adhering to gathering limits and rules. For additional protection, the Ontario government is encouraging everyone to download the new COVID Alert app on their smartphone from the Apple and Google Play app stores. With the Thanksgiving weekend quickly approaching, it is important to remember that we must limit our social gathering to a maximum of 10 people indoors and 25 people outdoors. It is also now mandatory in every region of Ontario to wear a mask while in public spaces. Thank you, frontline workers who are working tirelessly to keep our community safe. Thank you, local businesses, for continuing to adapt your operations as required in order to keep the community free from COVID-19. I encourage all of Pembroke's residents to shop locally and to continue supporting our business community. Whether it is in person or online, supporting our local business owners is critical for full economic recovery. In conclusion, I'd like to thank all of Pembroke's citizens for continuing to do what is required in order to keep our community safe during these challenging times. The threat of COVID-19 outbreak in Pembroke is very real, and the fight against the pandemic is far from over. It is critical to remain vigilant about following public health guidelines. Wear a mask, wash your hands, maintain physical distancing, and stay at home if you are not well. On behalf of Pembroke City Council, I'd like to wish everyone a very happy and healthy Thanksgiving, and please stay safe. Are there any notices of motion? Councillor updates. Councillor Reevy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just further to what you've said, the staff, very small staff really at the health unit, have been working above and beyond the call in partnership with VTAC and EMS. And with the school opening, they had to prepare and work through that. Then, of course, the closure of fellows sort of made them have to look at everything again. But the next thing that they're planning for is flu season, is around the corner. So currently, clinics are being planned with primary care providers across the county and district, and it is going to look different than it has in previous years. So please watch the Renfrew County District Health Unit website and local media to get information on dates, locations, anything else that you may want to know. So Dr. Cushman wants to advise us that during this pandemic, it's imperative that we do our best to prevent co-infection, my goodness, related to the flu, and also to reduce visits to primary care and emergency departments. This will help ensure that there is sufficient capacity to respond to COVID-19 activity should we need to do so. So the flu shot is the best defense against getting and spreading the influenza virus. So let's all do our part to reduce the spread of COVID-19 and the flu. Same routine, wear the mask, stay, keep your distance from each other, and hopefully we're not going to see a surge in something else we don't want to see a surge in. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Abdallah.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have two things to report on tonight. The first one is Councillor Lafreniere and I attended a meeting last week of the Recreation Department with the program partners, the Pembroke Public Library, the Active Living 55 Plus Center, and the Pembroke Boys and Girls Club. And it was a very good discussion. And the whole idea is to further develop our partnership that we have with the three groups, and to streamline programming, avoid duplication, and offer innovative programming also. And we only have one recreation programmer in our department, and she does a wonderful job, as well as the whole recreation department. And what we're doing here, we have dedicated funds in the budget for family/youth programming and seniors programming, two separate accounts. And we want them to access some of those funds, and other individuals too will come forward. All the, we're going to meet again in February after we have our budget finalized in January. Hopefully council will approve the funds again, and they will put proposals together, and then the proposals for programming will go to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, and out of that, they will come to council for approval. The other thing I want to report on is the Community Watch Program. We had a very successful meeting at the amphitheater on September 19th. It was well attended. We had double our previous meeting. We had over 40 people there. And the response has been quite good. As I mentioned at the last meeting, this flyer was sent out in the water and sewer bill. We've made a decision to cancel the October 24th meeting because of the COVID rising numbers. We're going to reevaluate it in November, and we might meet towards the end of November at the Pembroke and Area Community Center Activity Room, but we will see. We are still working behind the scenes to establish the first neighborhood, which is McKay Street to Moffett and Renfrew to Mary Street. If you want to get involved, join our mailing group, get involved in the program, you can still get involved. You can contact the Deputy Mayor, Ron Gervais, and myself, or you can contact us through our email, pembrokeseawatch@gmail.com. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Lafreniere.
I want to advise everyone that the Senior Affairs Advisory Committee has started meeting again. We met on September 30th, and we reviewed the results of the senior survey that was circulated prior to the COVID shutdown. Seems so long ago, but this was our first chance to actually look at the results. And this is actually the first step to us building a roadmap to build our senior master plan. A lot of recommendations came out of this, but before we jump on one of the wants that has come out of this survey, we want to do it upright. We want to make a roadmap saying which should we challenge first. With these results, we can apply for funding to get this master plan done. So we're talking about hiring a facilitator to meet with the group, go over the results, and build our roadmap. And that's exciting. I was impressed with the surveys that came back. Majority of them were seniors that still live in their own home. Most that are actually using online, email, which surprised a lot of us. We thought maybe that they were more, reclusive, but no. I will be probably presenting the results here at some point, but we don't want to be premature. We had a lot of good discussion at the meeting the other night, and something that came out from the representative that we have that sits on the Seniors 50 Plus is a program that they came out with and I want to share it, and we need to get this word out. It's for seniors that are isolated. It's a free program. It's called Seniors Center Without Walls, because they offered a lot of programs at the center, but obviously now because of COVID, everything's virtual or on the phone. They can pick up flyers anywhere, and Councillor Abdallah and I brought up the idea of using some of our budget that the Seniors Committee has to print more of these and help them distribute it to our senior residents in the city, because it benefits all of us. They organize games. They do yoga over the phone. I mean, it's really something valuable right now, especially. So it's something we will be, like I said, we'll be putting them at City Hall. We'll be distributing through all our members. And if you know a senior that is at home and could use this service, please contact the Seniors 50 Plus Center. And I'm sure they'd be happy to give you the information.
Thank you. Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of Council, last evening the Mayor and I attended a Climate Advisory Committee. We have some very capable people who have come out of the woodwork who have concerns about the ongoing climate change that's taking place across not only Pembroke but across the world. And hopefully they're going to come forward with some good ideas that'll help our community. We are on the green track, Your Worship, but it's good to have people that want to advise us how we can do better. Thank you.
Thank you. A closed session meeting was held earlier this evening to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose and for the purpose of educating council members. Also at that meeting, a pecuniary interest was declared by the Deputy Mayor. Confirming bylaw. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Reevy, that bylaw 19-2020 to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of Council of October 6, 2020 be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gervais, seconded by Councillor Reevy, that bylaw 19-2020 to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of Council of October the 6th, 2020 be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. All those in favor? Carried. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please? Oh, yes?
Did you ask for a motion to approve the Festival Hall Committee minutes for December 19th?
Yes.
Okay.
I had them both.
That was all taken care of?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. I missed that one. Thank you.
Okay, so all those in favor? Okay, carried. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by Councillor Lafreniere, seconded by Councillor Giacono. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.